Okay, if Jill's ready.
I'll read my little spiel.
Yeah, go for it.
I have a few housekeeping items for the Zoom meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel. Please remember to mute yourself during the meeting when you are not speaking. The chat function for this public meeting is disabled. All the chats will go directly to me. Unless you're participating during the meeting, please turn your video off. This allows the active meeting participants to be seen on the screen. You will still be able to hear the meeting. When you are participating, please turn your video on. If you have any trouble, please send me a chat. The city reserves the right to mute people or turn individual videos off to minimize distractions during the meeting. And please remember to state your name each time you speak for the benefit of those participating remotely. And now I'll turn it back over to Daniel.
Great. Thank you, Abby. My name is Neil B. Smith. I'm the chair of the Cultural Arts Commission. It is Wednesday, March 8th at 7:35. And I would like to call this meeting to order with a roll call, beginning with Marlo.
Present.
And then Mary.
Present.
And then Dina.
Present.
Marciana. Oh, great. Thank you. Rebecca. Not hearing Rebecca. Is Rebecca on Zoom? I don't know if you can see them.
You go to the participants.
Yeah, I don't think she is.
All right. And then Jill.
Present.
And Tim.
Present.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you all. We have a quorum. That is great. So we can move on to approving our minutes. Beginning with the December minutes, which previously were amended, and they have come back. They've returned, like things often do, and so we are now potentially moving to approve the amended minutes. Is there any discussion?
I can speak to the amendment too, if you guys have questions. As I was watching back February's meeting, and also thank you so much for being flexible with me. Random COVID. I hadn't had it in 3 years, and it was my time. Yeah, I added a couple of sentences there to reflect what was needed to be amended, and they're just back in here for you guys.
Should I make a motion to approve the amended minutes?
That would be great. I would certainly appreciate that. All right. Jill has made a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tim. I will go ahead and once again do a roll call vote. I'm starting with Marlo.
Approve.
And then Mary.
Approve.
And then Dina.
Approve.
And then Marciana.
Approve.
And then Jill.
Approve.
And Tim.
Approve.
And I will also approve. They have been approved unanimously, which then brings us to our next agenda item, which is approving the February minutes. I will open the floor for discussion.
I had a correction to the spelling of Candy Baker's name. It's Candi.
Great, thank you. Noted. I know there was also some discussion about the agenda for this evening and sort of what we had discussed at the previous meeting. I haven't reviewed the video from the last meeting, but my understanding from the conversation we had was that, and there obviously was a little bit of emailing, so this might not be a surprise to staff, but we were interested in reviewing the eligibility for the community arts grants, not reviewing the community arts grants, which is, an important difference. So I would ask that we amend the minutes to just reflect that at this meeting in March we are reviewing the eligibility of our applicants, and that it won't be until March that we actually review the applicants after having scored them. So that is my amendment. And unless anybody else has amendments they'd like to make, I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the February meeting.
I'll second.
Dina B. Smith.
I'm sorry, this is Dina. I'm on, sorry.
You're fine, Dina. Just to be clear, you're making a motion to approve the minutes with the two
With
aforementioned amendments.
With the aforementioned amendments. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dina. I will once again do a roll call vote, starting with Marlo.
Approve.
And then Mary.
Approve.
And then Dina.
Approve.
And then Marciana.
Approve.
Jill.
Approve.
Tim.
Approve.
And I will also approve, which gets us through the most exciting part of the agenda, which is the minutes, and gets us to public comment. I don't see anybody in the room here. I don't know if there's anybody on Zoom. My eyesight's not that good, so let me know if we have any guests.
Rebecca.
All right. Get her in here. Other than Rebecca joining us, I don't see others in here that would be for public comment.
All right, with no public comment, I will officially welcome Rebecca. Thank you for joining us. We've got a full house now. That's great. And we can move past the public comment on to new business, starting with item A, which is budget review. So Abby, you want to take it away?
Yes, yeah, and something that happened in the last meeting is I had attached an incorrect version of the budget ledger, which was so confusing, and I do apologize for that. I took into account what you discussed last meeting about allocating the $70,000 for community arts grants and the doubled Phoenix Awards funds, and then I factored in here our $1,750 amounts for the artists for the ODSC, and just kind of factored our budget in. And this is just a very much of an overview of what this could look like, and we can work off of this. Hopefully, every meeting we can touch base about this and see where we're at. But this is the most up-to-date version. So I would be happy to take questions if anyone has any questions or concerns about how this is laid out. Be happy to clear up any of that.
So we have 70,000 for community arts grants?
Yes.
Okay.
And let me share my screen. I realize I haven't done that. For Rebecca and Marciana. And the text is really small, I'm sorry. And Porter and I were chatting about, actually this isn't correct now too, I'm so sorry, that should be 20 instead of 23. We were chatting about the outdoor downtown sculpture exhibition and how we hadn't, to date added extra funds to that. And the way that this is lined out with the $1,750 per artist, that allows us to have 10 on the docket. I know you guys went and scored them and had sort of 8 choices. So we do have a little bit of wiggle room if we do the 8, and we can continue to touch base on that, but just in case that's a question. I did a lot for 10, leaving about $2,500 for AutoCast. Anything else we might want to include in that.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or discussion around the budget as shown? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Abby. I think that going forward, this is just a great thing just to keep us, keep us focused at the beginning of every meeting. Up next, we have item B, which kind of feels like it should have been the very first thing we talked about. This is the reinstation of the Arts and Culture Director. Obviously, Porter is here at the table, and his name has been in the newspaper and all of that. So I don't know, Abby or Porter, I don't know which one of you wants to cover the reinstation, but
I've never been stated before. Reinstated.
I mean, I'm just reading off the paper. So
I'm making up words.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yay!
I'm glad you're happy. It's interesting how, it's funny because I was thinking back on when I was leaving in July and August, I believe, and I was excited about the future, not realizing I'd be part of the future. But part of what's happened that I think you all are aware of is that the Parks and Recreation is now taking over Unmistakable Identity as part of the strategic plan, which is a good thing. And with that, they're doing a comprehensive plan, which is also a good thing, to fully integrate arts and culture. So I was like, boy, this is just ripe timing. And the city manager, when Diane Stoddard left, there's some reorganization happening. And as we started talking about things like, would you like to go back to arts and culture? And I was like, boy, this is a perfect time to, ironically, some of you will appreciate this, sort of do what I was hired to do in 2015.
exactly.
So I am Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation, Arts and Culture. I'm not the Director of Arts and Culture, just for clarity. Titles matter. But basically positioned in a really good way to make that happen. So I'm really happy to be back. It was a nice little break, honestly, but I'm also happy to be in this meeting and not in last night's meeting anymore. So I won't be doing the city commission meetings anymore, so that'll be kind of a relief too, and focus on an area that I'm more comfortable and familiar with and excited about. I think the future is bright. So happy to be back. Thank you for welcoming me. Appreciate it.
Can you get us more money?
I think we can have those conversations. I will add, as I'm thinking about, and I've spoken with there's an arts consultant now built into the Confluence team. And her name is Amanda Golden. She has direct experience with civic arts and culture administration, and so I think she's going to be a real asset in helping with some earnest community engagement to really talk about, what do we want to be as a community when we grow up in arts and culture. So it isn't about what's happening now as much as what do we want to see happening in the future. And you guys are in, all position, and obviously others in our community, and we've been working with other stakeholders to really think about, what does that look like? Do we want to continue the current programs and policies we have? Do we want to look at those and bolster them, change them, that kind of thing? So I think, we've been doing this a long time in a really great way, but we're also kind of stuck in some legacies here. And are those the best legacies to move us forward? So,
Yeah, good. We've got some
stuff.
ideas.
Yeah, good. That's great. And I have some thoughts too on looking at various things through the Americans for the Arts stuff that I've shown you before that I think has some good resources. So we're gonna have some fun.
Mrs. Morello, I will just say that the only positive of you taking a little breather is we realized how much we need you. And we really want to thank the commission, the city commission, and the city manager for recognizing the importance of such a expertise in the arts, and that position is vitally important for strategy, for national awareness of trends in the arts. You cannot put a price tag on that, so grateful that
Thank
you're
you.
back.
Thank you. I
It's a
really
big thing
appreciate
for the
it.
city.
I'll second.
Yes, here.
DLB Smith, just for the sake of how things are going to work going forward, Porter, you will be our liaison, and that's going to start, is that starting next month?
Actually, we haven't actually had, I'm a little schizophrenic, so bear with me. This is my first week, and I've been transitioning out of here and over to there, and still doing public information officer stuff, so it's been a little confusing. So we haven't had an earnest chance to talk, but my hope honestly is that Abby can stay on, and we'll be sort of co-liaisons, if that's amenable to you guys, because I want, she's done a great job. I want her to continue, and then we can tag team things. So if there's, a situation where I can't be here, she can't be here, we can both cover that and stay contiguous with what's happening, if that's okay with everybody. So that's my thinking at this point, subject to change depending on how things play out.
Great. Well, I asked you that primarily because when I first heard that you were going to be coming back to us, one concern that I had was that we would then be losing Abby, and so best of both worlds, we get both of you. So just want to make that clear, and I appreciate. I'm also very excited that you're back, and appreciate both of your continued service.
Thanks.
Unless there's other accolades that want to be shared, we can move on to new business item C, which is clarification of meeting with Toni.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
This is another thing that came out of last month's meeting that I wasn't able to directly speak to, and so I just wanted to let you all know that I did go ahead and meet with Toni the next day after our December meeting, which would have been the 15th. And I'm so sorry that I didn't communicate that more clearly. I did go ahead and congratulate her, and although we weren't able to get a photo, I actually did get a photo of her just because I didn't want to miss the opportunity to get a photo of her with her art installation up at Wheatfields. And I was just there yesterday for lunch, and though it's, I think, over, they still have some of her lovely stuff on the wall, so it's still totally possible for us to get a photo with her. So you and I can chat about that if you're still interested in doing a little lunch date.
Sure, I am personally more than happy to meet up with Toni and do a handshake and a photo op, whatever. I also think that, I appreciate you taking the time to meet with her, and if we don't end up doing a handshake and a conversation, that's also fine. So
It was, yeah, it was mostly, she was around and it just worked out and I didn't want to, postpone with her because I wanted her to feel the honor of the position. And so it was just quick. I bought her lunch and that was that. But I thought it was neat and she's really, really wonderful. So I'm glad I got a chance
Nice
to.
photo.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought so too. It was a busy day, of course, right? You're trying to get a photo. And it was so like weirdly in the hallway and she's kind of standing over like a weird box on the wall, but it turned out really nice. So I have a couple more photos, but that is the cutest one. And we can use that for our press release. I got permission from her that way. And I'm not sure if we have a release I'm supposed to use for using her photo.
Oh, in this case,
Yeah.
since she's working with us, you don't have to worry about a photo release or anything. You're fine.
Okay, yeah. I had that thought after the fact where I was like, man, I got to check into this. But yeah, so we have that available to us when we do a press release. And I just wanted to clear that up and happy to take questions if there are any.
This is Dina Amont. Thanks for that report on this. And just a question about, so when will a press release go out? About that.
We can definitely revisit this. I initially wanted to do it soon after, and just with, I think, a lot of the transition of figuring out what streams I'm allowed to use in Parks and Rec. I know I would love to be able to just do it on our channels, but it's sort of weird. And there was conversation I had with Maureen in City Hall, and she said to hold off until we had photos of the physical awards and do one blast then. So that was feedback that I got from her, and I realized I did not communicate that back to you guys in a timely manner. So apologies for that.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, and forgive me, I'm catching up.
Yeah.
So you've selected the artist who will be making the awards, and then when is the Phoenix Awards ceremony going to be?
October 15th.
So you're doing both in the same year because of the budget? The artist is making the awards this year.
She was selected in the fall.
Okay, so you stuck to the on again, off again. Okay, that's what I was trying to understand. So she was selected, but she'll be making them this year, but then you're going to have an award ceremony in October. Cool. Okay. Okay.
So this is Dina. Would it not be appropriate to just do one press release, like as soon as reasonably possible, to announce that that Toni is has been selected to create the awards, and then way in the future in October when the awards are given out, we could do another press release at that time?
I can certainly ask City Hall.
Historically, what we've done is, she's now announced through this, so my knee jerk is from a marketing perspective to have, like Maureen's saying, more information. And so one thing is we could talk about releasing it, so to speak, to the arts and culture list, because that's the group of people that be most interested. So let me think this through a little bit. What's the intent?
Dina B. Smith. Oh, sorry, you can go ahead.
Well, I was thinking maybe two things. One, just to announce that she's been selected, and then also to raise awareness of the awards. So just in general, so people can start applying.
Agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think having that awareness, I don't think people know it's back, and so I think
No.
having that announcement would be lovely.
Not to jump ahead on the agenda, but to try and encourage people to, Old Business C is Phoenix Awards are now accepting nominations.
So that's what I was getting to.
I think that
It's
is
more than just announcing the artist, but it's actually announcing the award ceremony and the nomination.
Yeah, I think that.
Are
that
the
would make sense to
nominations
me.
open currently?
Yes, currently.
Oh, okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, you and I can work on this and figure out the best way to do this. And I think it would be appropriate to have a city release for this.
Yeah,
So we'll
excellent.
figure that out. Okay, thank you. I just didn't have that background. I apologize. I wasn't caught up on all this.
This is Mary. So if we do it the way we did the last time, we would need some sort of graphic or picture of her work or whatever by about the beginning of August
Right,
so that we can generate postcards and
right. Is she working now? Do we have an estimate of when she can produce?
We haven't looked over the contract. That's something that I'm hoping to have on the agenda for April, and we can finalize that contract. There's just a few minor edits, and I'm not sure, I'm assuming all of these things need approval from the commission to then go to the public. But we had discussed the number of awards changing from like 6 to 12. And also I need to update a couple of the dates in there as well. And our doubled funding for this. Yeah, she doesn't have the contract yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we can work on this.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I agree, Mary. We'll get, because it was nice with Walt and, was,
Kim Webster was the award. What?
when Walt, they made those awards,
Walt and Kim, yes.
it was Kim?
Kim Webster.
Okay,
and
sorry, I
Walt-
couldn't remember the
and
name.
Walt Hall.
They just were beautiful,
Yeah.
and it really
Yeah,
shines.
Because Walt made
The frame.
the frame.
Metal, yeah.
And then Kim made the
Glass.
glass.
Yeah, they were beautiful.
But if we can have, we don't have to have all of them, but if we could just have a
Right.
couple
Right,
by midsummer that could be photographed well,
right,
and then we can use them because it worked really well, I thought, last year,
yeah,
to really recognize people with the postcard.
yeah. Cool, okay.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
All right, great. Well, that takes us to the end of new business and on to old business, starting with item A, which is the community arts grants applicants review. And so at this point, as I mentioned earlier in the amendment to the minutes, really at this point in the process, we're looking to just discuss the eligibility of the applicants. The subcommittee met and discussed the applicants and looked over, trying to see if there was anything that jumped out to us as potential questions around eligibility. And there was really only one of them that we had sort of some questions about. And so we would like to ask staff if they could either follow up or clarify some details surrounding the applicant's residence, or if they are local to Lawrence, which is one of the requirements that individuals, organizations applying have to be Lawrence-based, and then also ask about some specifics about where that specific project would be happening, and whether they have a letter of support from one of the partners listed.
The eligibility requirement was that there was an individual arts organization that resided in Lawrence. And so when we were looking at the grants, there's no part that's visible to us where there's an address. So that could be something to address for next year is, I don't know if they have to submit an address and we just don't see it on our end. But if there's a way to visibly have proof of residency, that would be lovely.
I believe you. I'm just double checking. So we see rental fees, yep. So I remember there being questions in this form, and I have, this is everything that I have. So I'm just taking a moment to go through. Yeah, sure enough, I guess it's not a required question. That is something that I can double check on the back end to make sure we have the addresses. Yeah.
I was just going to ask about the other one that had the way high ask. So one of them, I think our limit is what, 15,000, and one of them has asked, $30,000 or $31,000.
Right there.
So I don't know if, I don't know if that's an eligibility issue per se, But it did raise, if you're going to be looking at this online form, if there's a way that we could make that form, kick out an application if they ask more than the limit. Because, you don't want to waste anybody's time.
Right.
I mean, I realize it's pretty clear in the instructions, but
Yeah, it's only logical, right, to put a cap on that. This form, just for context, isn't something that I created. I just, asked
You're just
our
using
web
it,
administrator to open it.
Yeah.
But I can meet with him absolutely, and we can make adjustments to it for easier use, and also absolutely making that address question that you have to give us your address.
We'll have to look. So just because it's not showing up on the form, so the form is being created by the database within WordPress that we ask a bunch of questions, and I think this is a form I created years ago. So we can go back in. I can't do it right now, unfortunately, but we can go back and double check on that. And ironically, I don't think we've ever put a cap on it, and we never needed it. So kind of like, honor system, but we could certainly do that.
Yeah, we have.
No, we've had a cap, but we haven't put
On
it
the
into
form?
the
it's not
grant
automated in the
form.
form.
Oh, you haven't had anybody ask for over the.
Right, that's my
amount.
point, is
Yeah.
that nobody's, it seems pretty,
Wouldn't you just kick it back to the maximum amount? I mean,
The question we had on that one was it wasn't apparent that they had a cost share, so they didn't put a matching amount into the request. And so that was our question, like, how do we evaluate that? Like, can they do the event with half the amount? If,
I see.
you know,
Yeah, I'm
how to
not-
attribute the budget to that? And it was just raise
Or
some
perhaps they might not have filled it out properly, and maybe they do have a match, but they didn't
right.
know how to do
that was my first
Right.
question, is there
Yeah.
some error in accounting
Yeah.
here that we just need to understand? So we can
Yeah.
go back and look at that.
So, yeah, it feels like a follow-up, before
Yeah.
we consider all the applications that we kind of hone in on that one.
Right.
In response to a question that was brought up in the February meeting, if we did in fact reach 100,000, and we are well above that, our total ask is twice. And I think the thing that was contingent upon that was the allocation of the 70,000, so we're well in the clear.
So for that, we only have 70,000, and we have 202,000 in asks.
Yes, indeed.
That's about right.
Sounds like TGT,
Yeah.
all over
Typical-
again.
Typical grant.
Yeah.
It was interesting with this, as an applicant applying for this one, close to the TGT, because I think we usually don't apply for them both close to the same time. And this form was so different than the TGT form. So my thought was, is there a way that those city systems can be similar? Because this one, I'd like to have the budget, you put in the numbers, and it would, show you your calculations. I found that very effective. What was less effective with this one was that I didn't receive any confirmation that the grant went through. You don't get an immediate email like the TGT. You get an email, it came from Roger, and it said, "Hey, thank you for submitting. We'll be in touch with you shortly." And then Roger had replied back like 3 weeks later with the timeline for the grant review process, and that was really helpful. So my concern is that we have these applicants that have applied in December and
Right.
haven't heard nothing. And so maybe some of them are cool enough to tune into our YouTube channel or check out our minutes, but some may not. So I think having some kind of communication with these folks would be a great idea.
Daniel B. Smith, I think both you and I have commented that we've had direct correspondence with folks who have applied that we know. So I think it would make sense to shoot off communication. I mean, in the future, obviously, maybe automate the process. But for now, I think sending an update would be nice. And as far as the forums are concerned, and I will mention the committee at some point in the agenda, but the conversations that we're having as part of the committee. I'm never going to remember the name. Some of those conversations we're having, a lot of them are really about trying to standardize some of these things across different boards and departments. And I could definitely see as a goal having the TGT application process and the community arts grant application process, trying to make sure both those are robust and have all the things they need, but then also trying to make them similar, especially since, as we're seeing, like, there's a number of folks who are applying to both. So I think it's going to save them time and trouble if we can make some of those things a little bit more standard. But for now, I think the subcommittee's recommendation is to verify the eligibility, specifically on one of them where it was unclear as to whether or not they are local, and then potentially follow up with the individuals who requested far more and see if that is how much they need to have it happen, whether there's a match, some of those things. But other than that, I think, all of them seem like they should be eligible for the community arts grant, which would mean that between this meeting and our next meeting, it would be the task of this body to look over the applications and score them within the rubric that's been sent out. My apologies if anybody thought that they needed to score all of them before this meeting, with some slight miscommunication that happened. But I think, unless anybody has anything else they want to say about the eligibility of these as reviewed by the subcommittee, I think we could move on to discuss going forward. Other than checking on a couple of those details, the fact that all of us are going to need to bust out our rubrics and spend a little bit of time trying to rate these applications. I know there was a question of when that would happen. Our assumption now is that it would happen at the April, regular meeting. I know that there was potentially some interest in looking at the possibility of doing a special meeting. So
I would love to do a special meeting, just for the fact that these applicants applied back in December of 2022. And so I know, just looking over the events and things were happening, they were in progress. And so I think, with the lack of communication to the applicants, moving expediently would be wise. So if that's amenable to everyone, and we could look at some dates tonight, that would be lovely.
B. Smith, I certainly have no objections to doing a special meeting if everyone can make it work. Obviously, it's a little more effort from a scheduling standpoint, but it would prevent the April meeting from being incredibly long, considering there'll probably be at least a couple other things we need to address during that meeting. So
The nice thing about that is someone could attend. So if they were a grant applicant and wanted to hear the review, they could come. They didn't have to come to one of our general meetings as well.
I'm open.
Depends on when it is.
Would like a Wednesday evening work?
And I have this incredibly tiny calendar up here. If it's helpful for people, our next meeting is on the 12th of April, which means we have 4 Wednesdays.
Second or the 29th?
Midpoint would be the 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
How does everybody look on the 22nd?
And next week is spring break for
Right.
anybody who that
Yeah,
may be
can't do that.
affecting. Well, I'm also thinking, because who's scoring? The committee?
Everybody.
Everybody.
Okay,
Yeah, the big
that's what I
group.
thought. So yeah, just make sure everybody has time to go in and review everything too.
I think 2 weeks is a nice baseline for a grant review. So that could put us at the 22nd.
B. Smith, I certainly have no problems meeting on Wednesday, the 22nd. And I think that for me, I think 2 weeks is enough time to do the scoring, unless anybody has any problems with that. And then also, because this would be a public meting, obviously we need to look into availability of rooms. This room, I know there's a few others. So curious if anybody, Marciana, Rebecca, if you're aware, if you'd be able to make Wednesday the 22nd work. I mean, we could just do it at 7:30 and have it be like a, same time, same place sort of thing, if that's simplest.
Yeah, and I can check on that tomorrow and, get an email out to you guys pretty expeditiously.
Yeah, if I can get the email tomorrow to get started on the review, that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
So to be clear, our job is to review all of them and then score them, and then we bring them all together and show our scores? Is that
I think typically we email them to Porter prior to the
Okay.
meeting. And so he will assemble them on the matrix. And then he usually has a great spreadsheet with all of our scores. And he accounts for, like, Mary and I both have conflicts of interest. So there will be some grants that we do not review. And so usually you have some kind of way of accountability for that as well.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, send, once you finish your score sheet, send it to me and Abby. We'll tally everything and put it together and calculate for conflict of interest for the appropriate ones, and then give you a good spreadsheet, like the TGT spreadsheet.
Okay, I was gonna say, I feel like I've done this before.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing.
Is there a date we should target to send those? If we do look at the 22nd, do you need those
The
20th?
One little snag here. I may not be available on the 22nd, but I don't know that should be, I think you guys can
Yeah, I
manage.
think it's necessary.
Yeah, are
I think
you
it's
available?
necessary. Yeah, unfortunately, it's one of those, I blocked out 2 nights because of potential parent-teacher conference, and I don't know when it's going to be. So I'm hoping, let's do this. Why don't we,
Are you available the 29th?
Or 29th?
29th?
Because that could give it a little more time for us to review on our own, just.
29th is open. If that works for you guys, that might give everybody a little more time and give me a little more time too, because I'll be out for spring break. So
Same.
if you guys are amenable, that would be great.
Can I zoom in? I will be driving. My husband will be driving at that time, but I can zoom in on the dashboard.
Yeah.
Zoom in for y'all.
But if we've got your scoring,
Right. And first and foremost, getting everybody's scoring. And then as long as you have a quorum, you can deliberate if everybody's comfortable with that.
And if you have specific thoughts about things, email those to Daniel or I, and we can make sure that your voice is included, as well as your scoring.
And just because I said same time, same place, it wouldn't have to necessarily be 7:30, and I don't think, I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but it's not a full meeting. I think there's potential that it could be shorter than a.
Yeah, I think
you
we
don't
probably
so?
block 90 minutes and see if it happens shorter than that. The other thing is to check, which I'm going to do right now.
does that work for Marcella and Rebecca?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just to make sure we have a quorum because I will be on the road. So hopefully if I'm not,
Would the 23rd be better for you? Or
I can do the 23rd.
The Thursday?
have to be Wednesday?
I can do the 29th.
This is Rebecca, and I could do the 29th as well.
What about the 23rd?
I can make it work.
What I could do,
Honestly, the 29th, just because I don't know, it's one of those squirrely things with a school schedule. I could probably make it work, but I'm reluctant to commit tonight in case something went awry. I will say too, this room is booked on the 23rd, but it is not booked on the 29th. Not that we have to meet in here necessarily. We can do some tech magic and still meet somewhere else. We could actually meet at Parks and Rec
I was going to say
potentially.
that's the next best
So
option.
yeah, so sorry, that's just more information.
It sounds like there's enough for a quorum for the 29th.
Yeah.
And if my reception goes out, you all will be fine.
2 on there.
Dina, you're not available on the 29th?
could probably join late.
Yeah.
Well, there's 6 if we don't count either of you two, but you're probably will be there. So
I'll be driving.
Yeah.
To Knoxville at the time.
Pete will be driving.
I'll be driving. I won't be
week
driving
is
and zooming, no.
Injured.
Because that's my last week, so I don't know what's.
well, we can have a
But
cocktail.
the party is the 25th, so that's. Depends on how hungover we all are.
Would it make a difference if it were earlier in the evening? If it were a 6 or a 5?
No.
No? Okay.
We'll just try and make it.
Okay, we can definitely shoot for here. I'll book here with Melody tomorrow. And
At what time are we,
7:30 to 7:30 work for you guys? Same time, same place?
could you do it earlier? Or does that mess people up?
Dina is
7 o'clock?
available earlier.
Okay, then let's stick, that's fine.
Hold it for me because.
No, that's okay. If everybody's okay,
So.
if everybody's okay with 7:30, then, and like you said, it probably won't take too long.
Rebecca and Marciana, how do you feel about 7:30 on the 29th?
This is Rebecca, and that works for me.
This is Marciana, and I can try to make that work.
Thank you, Marciana. All right. I will send a reminder email about that and just confirming all the details and getting that set up for you guys. And I'll make sure, Rebecca, that you receive that email with the scoring matrix and the link to all the different applications, and I can resend that all to you guys too.
What is quorum? Is it 5?
No, it doesn't sound like it. Do we have to have a quorum to make this happen?
DLB Smith, yeah, we will need a quorum, and a quorum is 5, which is why all of the
Yeah.
subcommittees max out at 4.
Yeah.
And then possibly Marlo, 5,
Yeah, we'll have 5.
possibly 6.
Would it
Seven.
be this is Dina, would it be a quorum if I were to join late, or would we still?
If you
Yeah.
joined late, yeah, we could still
Voting
vote on it.
be till the
Okay,
end.
till the end, okay. And then, Dina, again, one more question. So if it's on the 29th at 7:30, and then Abby and Porter, you would want our scoring by the Monday before that, probably, the 27th? Because we had it the 20th and 22nd, so probably the 27th to get your scoring. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that would be great. Works for me.
Or sooner.
Or sooner, sure.
Yeah, because that gives us time. But no, the 27th should be okay. That'll give us enough time to get it all.
Yeah.
We just have to get it into one form.
I'd recommend sending a reminder email just to get it on
Please.
everyone's radar a few days before the 27th.
I'm putting mine in for the 24th, 2
Can I
days.
ask another question?
You may.
So, the eligibility criterion that we evaluated, is this committee in charge of those? Like, if we ever had a situation develop where we wanted to tweak those,
Yeah.
or we're in charge of that?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
DLB Smith, hearing no more discussion, I think that we can aim to meet 7:30 on the 29th, then have our scoring rubrics off to staff by the 27th, if not sooner. And I think that all sounds great. Potentially, we'll also see an update. We would request,
Yeah.
kindly request the staff send an update to the applicants in the coming day or two to let them know where things are at, so they can stop sending me emails.
And they can attend the meeting.
Yeah, and they can, yeah, hearing no discussion, I think we can move on to item B of old business, which is the outdoor sculpture exhibition application review. So this is another situation where the subcommittee met and looked over the applicants, made some recommendations to staff, and I think staff had had a chance to look over those as well. We heard that the number might be 10 for the sculptures in the exhibition. So Porter or Abby, do you have any additional staff updates you wanna include as far as?
Just as for the budget, I budgeted that there's enough in there for at least 10. There's some wiggle room with, what we need allotted for other, printing and for AutoCast and anything else that we want to include in that. But you don't have to have 10, but you can if you want to.
So to recap, you prioritized the applicants or the submitters, and then you selected the top 8 who scored highest from that process, which I think I went back and reviewed all those, and I have a couple of questions for a couple of artists, but nothing deal breaking. I just want to make sure that their work is actually appropriate. And it's always funny how sometimes work is fine for the public realm, but it can cause problems that would be unexpected. So I need to run it through park staff too, just to make sure we're all okay. Because we live in a college town, and sometimes college students do interesting things, especially after a few beers on a Saturday night. So I have to think
It's a
about
polite
that
way of
kind
putting
stuff.
it.
The only thing, and Daniel and I met, and I really appreciated talking to Daniel, in keeping with, so you have 8. The only thought I had, and this would be open for discussion, I think, is that in keeping with the spirit of what I've been trying to do with the Outdoor Downtown Sculpture Exhibition and expanding into new genre kind of opportunities and not just sculpture, I saw that Alicia Kelly did a nice inflatable thing, and I understand why you all scored it fairly low, because it doesn't fit the standard, let's put it out on the street, obviously, because it wouldn't last but a few moments. But I wondered if there was another opportunity, perhaps, because she was doing something unique and different, even doing an interior, and maybe it could move around. You know, maybe it spends a week in the library, it goes to the art center. So coming up with something like that is a possibility. And then with Richard Renner, I thought it was kind of clever and interesting and fitting with our sustainability commitment with the city's strategic plan, you know, to play with this thing and do it on a scheduled basis. So those were 2 that kind of stood out as possibilities, and that's why I checked the budget to see. So I think you could do 8, you could do 9, or you could do 10. So I just thought I'd throw that in for some discussion and thoughts.
This is Dina. I have a question. Can you share what the 10 artwork or 8 artworks are at this point? 'Cause I had some questions on some, but if they're not being selected, it's a moot.
Sure, yeah, I thought, do you have, Porter, I know you and I looked over the list and sort of the order they're ranked in. Do you have that easy to bring
I
up?
did
And
a cheat sheet here. I'm not sure if I could share this.
If you have email, you can shoot it over to me, and I have Daniel's, the list that you emailed him, I can pull that up as well, too.
so the list that I emailed is a pretty unimpressive little text list. It doesn't have the corresponding pictures, which would maybe make it easier. But yeah, if you want to, you can share that. You could even you can bring that up. You could also maybe.
Oh, wait. Hang on, Abby. I might be able to. Let's see what happens.
I was going to say, can you screencast or do fancy technology?
See if you can pull that up. This is my cheat sheet on my iPad, so it's not very slick, but it has everything you guys were asking about.
Did you send it to me?
I just emailed it to you.
All right.
It's kind of big. Oh, it may not get through because it's
Or maybe
picture.
you have, it looks like you have the website up there.
Yes.
Maybe we could just, you could just say which ones they are, perhaps.
Yeah.
I know this is kind of small for you guys, and they're in the back. Does that work for you? You want me to bring your list up and then we can cross-check them?
If you
I
want
got it
to.
here if you want me to read them off.
Oh,
Yeah, that seems like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's fine.
So the highest score was David Vertasnik, which is this piece.
I love this one.
I do
I did
too.
have a safety, just curious of the safety factor.
So in my mind too, I start curating.
I just realized that, I'm sorry. Here, let's try this.
Oh, sorry. So one thing I know is that there's less debauchery, not much less, but less at Theater Lawrence.
Except on the 25th.
So which day?
So I thought maybe this would be a little safer there because I'd hate to see it damaged. I'm sure it's well constructed and I do want to check with the artist just to make sure, but.
How big is it?
120 inches tall by 75 by 67.
So it's, what, 10 feet tall?
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's way bigger than it looks in the picture.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Go in that same space outside that we had the.
That's what I was thinking. And don't quote, this is, there's always a process, and honestly, it's amazing how the artworks kind of find where they want to be.
Right.
But
It really
that
does.
would be a good,
But yeah, I thought that would be kind of a fun piece back there, and it's nice for that little niche that
Yeah.
you guys have right there. So that could be something that we could do. Because it's also very climbable. So twofold. One, I don't want the artwork to get damaged. Two, I don't want any humans to get damaged.
We win a national
Is that the right
championship,
order?
somebody might climb.
Well, he said, one, he didn't want the artwork to get damaged, and two, he didn't want any humans to get damaged. And I just,
Porter, do you want to keep reading down the list and we can?
Okay, so if you go back, the next one was V.S. Willits.
Oh, yeah, love it.
And this artist submitted multiple pieces, and I think it was this first one was the one that we were most drawn to.
Right, that's what I had.
Is he responsible for the, there was like an archway going into, isn't there an archway going into South Park?
He's done works before, and that wooden archway, it may have been him. Yeah, that was there for a
Very
few
reminiscent
years.
of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, just a very cool piece.
Very beautiful.
Yeah, love it.
Do you want to keep moving down the list?
Yep.
Just know we've got a bunch.
And then Jacob Bermud, up there.
oh, it's like his name.
Yeah, this is a nice one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're incredible.
Definitely climbable.
Whoa, that's big. Very cool.
Yeah, that one's a little challenging in the sense that it's a large, scale, so we can't put it on mass because it would block the sidewalk. There may be a spot or two that's tricky, but I was thinking more, the library has the big plaza. There's the plaza in front of the law enforcement center, so it might be good there.
Is there the one, the sculpture that's right across the street from here, catty corner, or right across the street, it's kind of in like a flower bed? Is that temporary or is that?
No, that's actually a holdover. The artist just left it because he hasn't needed it yet. I'm sure he's getting back into, he does this nationally.
I don't know if that's
So that
too
could,
big
that
for
could
that
possibly,
space, but
it wouldn't fit the current concrete pad, I don't think, but it may be possible it wouldn't need to. I'd have to talk to Jacob and see if we can work that out. So that's a good point.
do you know when the
That's a thought.
boulder is leaving?
Not for sure.
Okay.
It will be this year, but we don't know for sure, and that's a mega project.
I'll say.
But that would be a cool, like, put something else there,
Yeah, that's less, it's such a weird,
Space.
highly
Right.
over-trafficked. It's hard to see stuff in there unless it's pretty significant, so.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we couldn't move something closer to the edge or something, so. I'm thinking mostly of existing, we have a lot of existing locations that already have concrete pads embedded, so it just makes life easier. Okay, moving along,
Okay.
Sarah G.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, these are the coolest.
So how does this work?
So each brick is hand impressioned by the artist. And then the proposal, as I remember, was to build like a walkway, either temporary or permanent.
Oh, wow.
And what I mean by permanent is with concrete, because we eventually probably want to take it out. It's a little trickier. I love that they're not doing standard public sculpture. We just have to find the right location and figure out how it can be installed.
Yeah, I was trying to skim for her.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a really,
Beautiful.
one of those very subtle, minimalist kind of things that you wouldn't even know necessarily unless you were actually
The fingers.
right there on it. And the key to something like this is really figure out the appropriate location, where there's some sort of interaction and, so that'll be key. And I'm not exactly sure of how many she has and how big this would be. She may have put specs on there.
I feel like something like that could be cool at the library, like on the lawn. If you could just like scrape out some sod and then
Yeah.
put like a walkway down and then just replace
Each
it
4
with
pounds,
sod.
but not a total.
Artifact, because kids could kind of interact with
Interact
it.
with it.
maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Stephen B.
Right below.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, this is one that I definitely want to talk to the artist, because the one that he proposed, go to submission 2. I think the one that you guys liked is this one. And the concern I have is that's quite a cantilever, and a 250-pound college student who may be inebriated, so I'll make sure he can handle it. So we'll have to have that conversation and see.
Should we add that as an eligibility criterion, that it has to be able to survive inebriated college
We allude
students?
to it in the criteria. It has to stand up to all sorts of things, but
That last one's really neat too.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are really cool.
I do actually like that third one as well. So, but along with all of the recommendations, we did choose a piece if an individual had more than one.
I was more worried about the survivability of that piece. That concrete piece is really cool, though.
and sometimes what happens is they often submit these to different competitions. So by the time we get to them, they may say, "Oh, I've already committed this to Dayton, Ohio." So at that point, we might, since they are in, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and may say, "Well, do you have another piece available?" And so we could, see how that goes. And then Mara S. These are sweet. Apparently she has actually made these. I think Daniel told me that her website shows that she's done this.
Yeah, I feel like if I were to talk tomorrow, I would recommend that they include pictures of their finished pieces along with future proposals, because there are definitely examples of very similar, in a similar style, this sort of electrical tower kind of motif that they have created that are finished and look, very, very well constructed, which I was able to track down to kind of help us,
It's just hard to determine in a sketch
Mhm.
what we're talking about.
Yep.
And I think
Love them. They're great.
Yeah, this one has the wheat.
I think this is the one that was selected, so I want to reach out and just make sure I understand. And then Pat S.
That's Slimmer's Automotive. That's cool.
That's done a few.
Great artist.
I didn't realize he was an artist. That's cool.
So this is one that I was sort of suggesting, I know Pat, I know it's incredibly well fabricated, solid. The challenge is he's inadvertently created a ladder.
Yes, he has.
And so again, if someone were to climb to the top of this, what are the dimensions again? I wanted to check.
12 wide.
6 feet tall. Okay, I think we're probably okay because you can climb other things too.
I was more concerned about people putting their heads through.
Could we electrify it?
Believe me, I've thought of that too.
This one is also 6 feet.
The other one definitely has a little more rhythm to it.
I could totally see that in front of the burger stand though.
So I think we can stick to that. I think it's a nice piece, and it is nice to have a linear piece because there's different opportunities for that. Merchants has a little space out front too.
That's right. That's right.
So that was where I was thinking as well.
Skinny.
Okay, and so those were the top 8. And then I would say, while I have so much respect for the other artists, what they submitted I don't think is...
Agreed.
I will say, as far as the top 8 versus potentially having 9 or 10 pieces, that delineation between that top 8 and the ones below really was just a product of us all kind of putting our scores together, and they're just after those first 8, there was sort of an obvious gap. So that's where that top 8 came from, because really when we submitted the ranking, it was just a ranking of all of them. Not really looking to necessarily suggest that 8 be what we go with. I am curious, though. I definitely agree that in regards to Alicia's work, Porter, as you mentioned, the survivability of that, it being an inflatable sculpture, was definitely a big detractor as far as the points that were were allotted to Alicia, but I think that if we were going to try and do a special arrangement, with that being more of a traveling indoor piece that could show up and stay for a while at different indoor locations, that would definitely.
I'm sorry. How big is it?
The piece that Alicia's.
7 feet tall.
Yeah, I think the one that she has there is a model, a maquette, just an experimental one, and the one she really wants to make is that one is a little more substantial. The other challenge is sound, because we'll have a blower, but I don't think that's much more than like a loud, it's a slightly loud fan, so if it's in a lobby or something, I don't think it would be.
And I think on her proposal, it looked like she suggested public events. So I was just in my mind, like, oh, Free State Festival, that'd be so cool to have. So if there's like a monitored situation.
City community events.
Yeah, I think that would be lovely.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of encouraging ephemeral art.
Right.
So it's not the traditional, it's planted here, it's here for 3 months kind of thing, but it's here, it travels, it's has its own mobility. I think that's kind of fun.
So
Potential
I
LEDs.
completely concur with the scoring and why the scoring occurred that way from a traditional perspective. But when I saw it, and I have to confess, I have a soft spot for Alicia because she's done other ephemeral works too, and she was one of the first to really break the mold. She did paper cutouts that we put on the library garage. So from a professional development, I think what she's doing is what we want artists to do, is to continue pushing their own boundaries and stuff. So I just wanted to find a way, if just to bring the question is that something that we would consider?
Well, don't we have the budget to do so?
I mean, I like the concept of expanding, to 9. I'm not so sure that I'm convinced on the intersection between sustainability and art with the number 10.
That's fine.
I mean, I'm totally behind that as a concept. That delivery didn't really resonate as much. But this would be really an interesting concept, especially to float it around. That's just a really cool idea.
I like the concept. It said 7 feet tall and how.
This one.
Alicia's not that.
Oh, yes.
No, she's going back to Alicia.
Right there.
She's saying 8 to 10 pounds, 7 feet tall.
So
Yeah, but
7
how
feet
wide
tall
then?
would probably be about 5 to 6 feet wide.
Yeah.
Right, dodecahedron is symmetrical to some degree.
But you're
Yeah.
gonna have like a standard.
You're going to have a podium underneath it,
Well,
right?
she has to have some kind of structure to, well, maybe not. I mean, the one that she did above, she has it blowing from below, but she's predicting that the blower would be from the side. I mean, all the Christmas ornaments now, this is how they work, and they're not that loud, really. You can get a fan.
Right.
Keeping
No, I
it
was thinking
laid
about the practicality of putting it in indoor spaces
Right.
Yeah.
because of the
It's,
large.
yeah, that's true.
footprint.
Yeah, you have to have a large space.
Part of me thinks that maybe if we could give her feedback and then encourage her to maybe apply for it again next year, because there are some question marks on her drawing, and I feel like maybe it's just not totally there yet, completely.
That's fair.
But I think it's a great idea. But just what does the blower sound like? I just feel, like you have to use other people's electricity and, I don't know, things like that.
I mean, that part of it is very, very possible. Years ago, when we did Christmas Story, we had an inflatable leg lamp.
Oh,
We took around
that's awesome.
to different businesses, and people would call us up and say, "Can we have can we have the lamp in our lobby?" But it was a more linear thing, and even then, some of the businesses, once we got it there, were a little concerned about how much space it would take up.
Sure.
But it was the same kind of concept that you had to plug it in.
I love pushing the envelope with this one. I just think throwing a unique one in this mix this year would be great, because then I think it might inspire people next year to see it and have some ideas to apply for the following year.
So would it be possible to designate it to be used like at certain outdoor festivals, like at Busker Fest and
Free State
the
Fest.
Free State Fest, and maybe Juneteenth.
DLB Smith.
Is that a practical, I mean, Parks and Rec would be the ones that would have to move it around.
As we've talked about before, we actually we have a great amount of freedom when it comes to how we spend the funds that we allocate, and I think that we could definitely move forward with the outdoor sculpture exhibition with the top 8 that we've previously discussed, and then we could keep this piece under special consideration, and we have a little bit of extra money from the ODSC pool that we could look to talk with some folks who are doing events and talk with Alicia and see if we can take that extra money and shift it over and do an indoor sculpture exhibition, a special sort of thing to try and, as Marlo, as you mentioned earlier, try and encourage this sort of innovation, but maybe develop it alongside some organizations and events that would play host to it. I think there might be a little bit more legwork that's involved. That's a little bit new. So I'm curious if people would want to see it as sort of like a slight offshoot, since it will require additional planning and collaboration.
I also think that it would be great. I think we've talked about doing these traditionally. We've done it Final Friday in May, so we have like the outdoor sculpture tour. Having this part of that, like I'd hate to just isolate it, like oh, we're just putting a June events, but having it part of the thing, I think it would be great. Because then it's like, hey, we're taking this tour. Here's a possibility of what could be in the future. This is what we're moving towards, versus just having this thing show up in June or July.
Well, I agree. I mean, if we're funding it with those funds, I think it needs to be present.
Part of the collection, yeah.
I mean, I think even though it's large when it's inflated, it's only, 10 pounds or something?
Yeah, 8 to 10 pounds, yeah.
So it could also be, I always like guerrilla art.
Me too. Yeah.
And,
just shows
it honestly could show up for a few hours at an event and then disappear and then reappear. I think and knowing Alicia, I think she'd be on board with that possibility. And so it wouldn't require a huge amount of installation, it just has to have enough space.
And power.
Exist and power. Yeah, you have to run a cord to it.
And she may have some great ideas where it could go.
Right.
DLB Smith, I feel like it brings everybody does love the outdoor sculpture exhibition, but I feel like people certainly have one set of expectations for it, and I feel like this is something that is going to drum up a little more enthusiasm. It's fun, it's different, so I definitely do appreciate in that way it can sort of act as an ambassador for the program, and people will. I was gonna say it'll make a little bit of buzz, which it will literally probably make some noise, but it will actually, I feel like, be something. While people do talk about the sculptures and really appreciate them, I think this will be something which will be a little bit of an oddity, and I think that's always nice to get some conversations going. So,
Do we need any kind of motion to get her into this situation?
I think what we're looking for today from this meeting is potentially a motion, an agreement on how many of these we want to move forward with. Potentially, it sounds like we like the original top 8 plus Alicia as the 9th. And so I think what we're looking for today is just a motion to move forward with that recommendation.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Tim.
I'll second the
8
motion.
plus 1.
8 plus 1.
8 plus 1. I'll second that motion.
All right. I will go ahead and do a roll call vote, starting with Marlo.
Approve.
And then Mary.
Approve.
And then Dina.
Approve.
And then Marciana.
Approve.
And then Rebecca.
Approve.
And then Jill.
Approve.
And Tim.
Approve.
And myself. So we will unanimously approve our recommendation that we move forward with the 8 plus 1 outdoor sculpture exhibition plus moving outdoor/indoor extra piece from Alicia. And the staff will review our recommendation and then congratulate folks as necessary.
And I will we'll absolutely follow this, and in case of situation where an artist may not have one piece available, we will still give priority to that artist and just select a different piece as much as we can unless something else happens, then we come back to you all.
So if they had multiple pieces available, let's say they didn't have the primary piece and they had multiple pieces, would you guys shoot us a note and say, well, what do you think of these choices? Or would you just choose?
It's up to you guys. I'd be happy to do that, and maybe, we still have the list, so we could send the list back and say, hey, so-and-so didn't have the piece you all selected. If you want to go back in and look, the 2 other pieces are available, and just give us your second choice, we could do that. That way it's guided by you all. Happy to do that.
Yeah.
And I will say that just, for the record, a lot of the pieces, we had the top 8, that there's a lot of other pieces on there that are really fantastic. Artists who have previously been involved in the outdoor sculpture exhibition, artists who we currently have up from the previous outdoor sculpture exhibition. So if it does end up in a situation where we need to move beyond that 8, like we're very fortunate to have a lot of great options.
And we have a good bench.
Yeah.
The next item on our list is item C in old business, which is Phoenix Awards. We already kind of touched on this a little bit. This item on the agenda simply says that Phoenix Awards are now accepting nominations. And I think that this is a good opportunity, as we discussed previously, to put out a little press release with the picture of Toni, really like advertising the fact that the awards are going to look fantastic. And so folks should be eagerly nominating.
Yes, and I have the nomination instructions available. If you know anyone who would like to have access to this, nominate someone that they know or themselves. These are available on the website, and I can also email those out. I'm pretty sure I included that in one of the reminders. I think it was on Friday, but let me know if you would like to have access to this.
Yeah.
Great, I can absolutely send that back out.
And I will say from experience, you all and anybody in your networks are really crucial to
Pushing it out.
nudge people, and people are really excited about it, but it is a fair amount of work, and so it takes a little bit of time, and so really encouraging people. And I would say, definitely who would we might not normally cross paths with that needs recognition, that deserves recognition, and thinking of diversity, but across the gamut, age, media, all that kind of stuff. Who's out there that really needs some sort of recognition for what they're doing? So it's good to get those invitations out.
I also wondered if we had any metrics on the outdoor sculpture exhibition, because I feel like we got a good variety this time versus last time we just had a few. And I know I posted in Facebook groups. I know the social media graphics were excellent from the city. So
Yeah.
could we in the
Abby does a
future
great job.
put a thing on there to say, how did you find out about this? So we know next year,
great,
like,
yeah.
hey, everyone from outdoor sculpture exhibition got an email, or they saw the graphic, or they got a Facebook group.
It's a great idea.
And I'm wondering with this too, like, could there be something, how'd you find out about the Phoenix Awards? Oh, was someone personally asked me to apply, or,
Yeah.
I saw it on social media, I saw a postcard, or whatever, a flame, those kind of things. And will this be in the flame? The application announcement?
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. I can talk to Maureen about it.
Yeah, and actually we now have the print flame, which is trickier because of scheduling, because of print, it has to be printed and then folded and yada, yada, yada. But we have an online version, so I think one way or the other we'll get that out there. The digital version of the flame will be more, it can be shared digitally, so you have a better option with that. So let me check on that.
Gosh, it seems like the Cultural Arts Commission needs its own Insta, right?
We have one. So yeah, we had some younger members before pandemic, and so we did start one. So I do have the login information, just has not been very active.
It'd be fun.
Yes, yeah.
TLB Smith, and yeah, we've definitely had some discussions around the potential for that, and I know that from some of those discussions, it was something where there was debate as to whether or not we could have a social media account which was officially run
We're
on.
not official, so it was like
Yeah.
a volunteer
Yeah.
account from the commission, but everybody had access to it,
Right.
and so the younger folks did it, and so it was really, it was active for a month or so. Then there was the pandemic.
So you all understand, if you do that, then guess what every other 140 boards and commissions would want? Their own Instagram account. And the problem is that we just can't sanctify that as a city. So we actually came up with a great solution where you have something that represents this, but it's not city-based, so it actually has a lot more freedom. But like any social media, it has to be fed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the key, yeah.
Yep.
So I can email that to you all, and you can send that out to the group.
Sure.
Because we have that login information.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Still out there, yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah, especially, any of you that are doing anything, it's a great opportunity to just start promoting and getting stuff out, so that's cool.
This is Dina, just something that I noticed on this document that you have up here. It says this year's awardees will be recognized at a ceremony in November, but I think it's October.
It is, it's October, you're correct. I can get that updated.
And maybe it can just say the exact date. I don't want to say it because I think it's
The
October
15th.
15th.
15th, yep.
I was gonna check
And
the calendar.
Is a location chosen?
It's going to be at the theater.
Theater Lawrence, cool.
Yep. That will be
So I'll
updated.
put that in there too, right?
Mhm.
And since the deadline's not till end of May, I do wonder if we could do the print flame, 'cause that's the one I look at. I always look at it before I put it in the recycle bin,
Same.
or I don't download the digital.
I'm so happy to hear that.
I really do. I
We,
look at it.
no, we definitely have a readership. I mean,
Yeah.
it's reduced with the online option, but
Yeah.
I love hearing, and every once in a while I get a call, it's like, hey, I really was interested in this article, or the other call is, do you realize you misspelled?
All right, great. We have one other item under old business, which is item D, which is funding discussion. And I'm going to let Porter or Abby take this because
Derek was going to try to be in two places at once tonight, and we have a community engagement meeting for a park at the Carnegie tonight, so he is over there. But Porter is very knowledgeable about this as well.
So if I understand correctly, it's still it's ongoing of should it be TGT, should it be different, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know.
Debbie Smith,
What are we talking about?
my understanding is that this is just touching base once again on the ongoing discussion of where what our primary funding source is. And I know in the past there's been some discussion about, should we be funded through TGT or should we be in the general fund? And based on my conversations with Derek, I assume he wanted to discuss sort of the pros and cons of those two options. But I mean, if Porter, if you're not prepared to dive into that mire right now.
No, I can actually speak to it. I think, one, I completely understand, and Marlo had some great, context. It's amazing how life changes. One of my favorite Maya Angelou quotes is, you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. And time changes. So who knew a pandemic was going to occur, which would wallop the one fund that we were recently inserted into, right? So that had happened just before that, a year or two before that. Now, though, that we are moving into unmistakable identity as part of Parks and Recreation, the entire TGT fund is now under unmistakable identity. So everything, including Explore Lawrence and others that are receiving funding from that, are coming out of that fund.
So, I'm sorry, the clarification. So is that fund all going to be administered by Parks and Rec?
Correct. So everything in the TGT is now coming under unmistakable identity. So the prevailing logic is that this is all part of that. There's always arguments in different directions. The only other fund that I think would really be applicable would be the general fund. That's the property tax side of things. The challenge with that, and I've seen this in every municipal government I've worked in, is that when things get tight, things get cut. More likely there. So my sense at this point is that what the Art Commission does, and knock on wood, we don't have any pandemics in the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years. The TGT fund makes the most sense for what you guys are doing. That would be my personal sense at this point. If you want to do something different, I think a letter was submitted. Okay. But the commission took no action, is what I understand.
They wanted to revisit it, is the way that I understood it,
Okay.
farther down. So I think they were just worried about the current budget, or maybe, I forgot what the timing was.
Debbie Smith, to be clear, the letter recommended reassessing the funding. It also requested that we have a staff person at a director level assigned to us. And I feel like So we should acknowledge that, like, I feel like they did fulfill some of the requests.
I sent them all emails. Same thing.
Yes.
I guess my only question would be, can you blend those sources a little bit?
Great question.
Because I get what you're saying about, when times get tight, you'd kind of like to have that little steady pool that comes from the general fund, and then because TGT almost feels like flex funding too, per the pandemic, right? And so it is, it's directly related to the number of visits that we get, and that can fluctuate with the economy even. And so I'm just asking a question because I don't know the answer. I mean, does that happen? Can you blend those sources or request them?
And let me caveat myself, I'm not the finance director,
Yeah,
so I
I
really
have
can't
no clue.
say if that's something that's, one, typical, and two, even doable from an
Yeah.
audit perspective.
I have no idea. Right.
I can ask that question.
My concern is also that the purpose of funding this commission is far different than TGT. TGT funds are supposed to promote visitors and service visitors and be part of the whole visitor industry, where arts and culture is directed more to the citizens of Lawrence.
Although I will say.
In-house.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, although I will say that the city does often use arts and culture in its promotional materials to attract, and so I'm a big believer, it's like if you're going to use it to bring people here, you kind of need to pony up.
Well, see, that's what Parks and Rec is doing right now. They're taking all the numbers from all of us, even though we're independent organizations. They want all our numbers to, as we all come together to not duplicate services and enhance services and create things. So, you can also make the point that we ought to be funded by Parks and Rec, because a lot of the people who participate in arts and culture do so as their leisure activity rather than
Playing
playing
basketball.
golf or pickleball or any of that. So I can talk in umpteen different
Yeah, I agree, I
ways
get that.
here.
Yeah,
And livability, I think anytime someone's recruiting someone to take a job here or start a business, they always come to the art center.
Yep.
And they're like, this is where you want your kids to be, this is where you're gonna take your pottery class, and that's, hey, I moved here from Los Angeles and I have these amenities in this small town, this is awesome. So I think we're residential and then we're visitor, we wear both hats. So I think that idea is intriguing. Could we do general fund and TGT funds? Can we wear both hats?
DLB Smith, yeah, I certainly, obviously, arts and culture is something that does drive visitorship, but I do agree that we shouldn't then be punished if people like the arts and culture so much that they decide to stay, long term.
right.
That's a good point.
So I think it's worth, what I'm hearing is that we should maybe put out feelers and at least find out from people who understand finance, which is not me, about whether or not it would be possible to maybe do some sort of combination. It seems like this isn't going to be something we're going to solve right now, but I think that is an interesting option. I think the TGT does make sense for us, but I also do think that arts and culture are very essential to what Lawrence is. So.
Yeah, could it be like the community arts grants are funded by general fund and the TGT grants are under the TGT funds? Because like we have limited programs that our budget for the year is very limited. So we're not talking high numbers, but 30,000, actually I'd rather have 70,000 every year for community arts grants. And those are serving primarily the residents. Those TGT events, those are the visitor events. And then we have both programs going, administered by one entity.
I will ask
I like that.
for direction, and the letter is still then active, so to speak, so we can bring that back up when budget, starts coming into play. I will remind you too, and I'm looking into this, you also have CIP for the Percent for Art resolution that's out there. We haven't done, the last piece that we've done it would be the one that we will integrate at the transit facility. which actually went from $80,000 to $200,000 because of the increase in that budget.
Deal?
Huh?
Oh.
No.
I mean,
well,
As a percentage.
there's the other side,
Oh,
is that happily it went up because we basically, everything is higher cost.
Oh, yeah.
So what's nice about that, though, is that it's going to be fully integrated with the facility.
Yeah.
I don't know if you all remember.
Yeah,
in the
it's gonna be
last-
cool.
Yeah, it's really nice. So anyway, I'm looking at that because we're also talking about gateways and that type of thing. So I really want to look at the CIP, and I think with what we're doing with the strategic plan, there is an argument to say, obviously CIP tends to focus on, it is bricks and mortar. We can't use it for programs and things, so it has to be to create something. But by the same token, with what we're trying to do with unmistakable identity and stuff, we've never, the commission may set aside up to 2% for public art. So it's not like it's not an ordinance that's required, it's a resolution suggesting that possibility. In years past, some of you remember, we may have asked for a fair amount of money, but they only funded so much, and that's their discretion. But in this case, there's a stronger argument to say, hey, if we are doing CIP funding and we're looking at gateway opportunities and things like that, something of interest there to really look at, should we be investing in our aesthetic infrastructure as much as anything else. So that comes to play too. How that plays out, I don't know yet, but food for thought. So that is something that you guys oversee as well.
I would hope that in the future, we can increase funding for programming though, rather than gateways and
that I want
Sculpture
to really
pieces,
tease
because-
out in the comprehensive plan.
because those are if we're going to support arts organizations, that's where the money needs to be.
Great. And I wonder if, with our new, so I forgot what your official title is, Director of Parks and Rec, if there's some opportunity for some reallocation of fundings or revisiting of our limited budget and how it might be increased in years future.
Again, with the comprehensive plan, I would say, it's a fair question. And the other thing is, how do we want to reorganize, expand program opportunities?
Yeah.
So, is public art the way we want to go? Or is there some other thing? And what I'll do is put together, Americans for the Arts has that social impact calculator, which is it's really beautiful, but it's kind of heinous to go through it. So I've just downloaded all those PDFs. I'm going to share that with everybody, because what's nice about it is it hits 28 different topic areas related to how the arts can be effective in these areas. Because traditionally we do think of sculpture, especially here, it's a great legacy program, but art is changing. I mean, any of us that are in the field know it's changing significantly. It's hard to even imagine what younger artists today are in their teens, what they may be doing in the future with digital technology. My gosh, quantum computing, it's insane. But we have to try to think that way, and also think about Panasonic moving in, and where are we on this sort of corridor going from, KC Metro out here? How might we affect, if I'm a young artist interested in really bolstering my career, I'm probably going to be drawn to the Crossroads in Kansas City, right? But then if I decide I want to get married and have children, do I really want to live in that environment, or might I want to be, so where do we fit in that sort of niche market? And what stake do we want to put in the ground going forward? If we really are an arts and culture town, what does that look like? How do we attract young artists so that they do want to come here? And now we have this fancy new airport. I know artists that actually commute from Kansas City to New York City a couple of times a year, 15 times a year, whatever it takes. You can hop on a plane and literally commute to the city. It's kind of incredible. So that's the kind of thinking I'm doing, is like, again, what do we really want to be in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and how do we serve those young people coming up? So that's the kind of stuff I want to get into, which goes to what you're talking about too, because the Art Center is talking about this. I'm sure Theater Lawrence is talking about this. So those are the kinds of things. How do we work together to manifest those things in the best way and fund them appropriately?
And could there be, on the agenda, some special topics every month where we could visit some of these ideas so they don't get lost in the shuffle of mural review and all those? looking ahead to the bigger picture, like if we could have a little agenda item on that.
Great idea.
You're good. Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you all, I'm not as familiar with the theater realm. We don't really represent music in this particular group right now, but that's something else we're talking about is, what sort of musical events or different kinds of events and things. So anything that you all stumble across, I was intrigued because my thought was when this happened, I do like Americans for the Arts as a rich resource of information. They've kind of put themselves on pause. I don't know if you knew that.
They had a controversy.
Yeah. And so the guy Bob Lynch, who's really a remarkable guy, but apparently he maybe did a hiccup in his last time. So they're literally regrouping, and they're not doing a conference this year. They're taking the whole year off and really reevaluating where they are and everything else and coming back next year.
Just when the arts budgets were getting increased in Congress.
So it'll be interesting to see how they land, because I have a feeling they're going to do some changing. So that'll be very telling. So anyway, it's just something's in the air in this sense. Just interesting. So enough said. So if you all have agenda items from some of your professional experience and stuff, please let us know. We'll add that in there.
Thank you for bringing up music. That's something that I've been thinking a lot about. How do we incorporate a little bit more of that into our work here? Because that's my thing, so.
I went to that Music Cities conference, and Steve from Parks and Rec went to
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and
was
Britt.
And Britt from
Yeah.
the Economic Development. So I think there was some momentum on that.
Yeah.
So it might be a good meeting topic.
Yep,
to
absolutely.
Have economic development. Yep. Some of those folks that went to that conference talk about some ideas.
Yeah.
Daniel B. Smith, we're going to have a special meeting to look over the scoring for community arts grants. Maybe that we'll have time in April to have that be our sort of a special topic. We can maybe try and get some folks who will chat with us and do some discussion.
On that note, since there was some lack of clarity with the agenda this month, and I've seen that before, I wonder if the agenda could come out a little bit earlier and even be sent to us for ideas. Just say, oh, here's the agenda, let us know some feedback. So if anything is unclear, there's like a week, someone can say, oh wait, I was confused, I thought we were reviewing this today. And then we're all on the same page and we're coming in knowing what we're talking about, what our jobs are, what our homework is, before we come in Wednesday nights.
Absolutely, I can do the Friday. I'm usually doing the Friday before the Wednesday. I can do the Friday a week, give you a week plus that.
That would be awesome.
Even what we might do is, what we do with the city commission actually is put out a draft version first that isn't all tied up with links and stuff, because staff may not have everything ready to go. But that way you have the highlights of what's happening, and that would be a good reminder. So you all would see that exclusively, and that would lead to a finished agenda.
Love it.
Yep, very helpful.
I think another thing I will throw out too, just food for thought, as we move into this comprehensive plan, I want the community, I hear a lot of, we're really strong in arts and culture and things, and I want to benevolently challenge that a little bit of what does that mean? Because I think people, I've said this before, I think people tend to take that sort of for granted.
Totally.
And most of us that are really in the trenches are really thinking harder about what does that mean? What do we need to do starting now for our younger audiences? You guys work in, early childhood education in this area, and it's really important. So how do we educate the broader community so we can have more sophisticated conversations as part of the comprehensive plan process? And I think artists know this stuff. It's just sometimes they need a little bit of nudging to think this way. It's like, I'm an artist. What would really be great for me? It's always hard when you learn to survive, and you're not necessarily thinking, well, if I had this studio set up, I could do X, Y, or Z, but maybe that's the kind of thing we need to think about. The other area I'm very interested in is affordable housing for artists, because affordable housing is high topic for us right now, and there's amazing affordable housing opportunities for artist programs across the country. Art Place I worked with in Kansas City, and they're really, what they're great about is they make you do your own research, and if they think it's optimal, they'll come in and look at it, but they'll tell you, you're not there yet. They're really that robust that they're like, you're just not ready. So we have to look at that kind of thing. But again, I think with Panasonic, I've always been intrigued by the east side of town, because that, K10 is a real easy commute. So anyway.
I do it every day.
Lots of opportunities, yeah.
And I think not just sending a survey out, but I love your idea of community engagement and doing, if we can do some programming that's reaching constituents that aren't going to be tuning in Wednesday night to a YouTube channel, but might be out there doing their things, and what do they really need? And what we may be able to offer from the Arts Commission and the city in general.
And this is Dina Amat. So Porter, what's the timeline on the comprehensive plan, like just big picture?
So the comprehensive plan will go to the city commission. The contract will go next Tuesday. So everything's built into that. Community engagement is a big part of that. Keep in mind, it's not just arts and culture, it's parks and recreation. But so all that'll be out there. I think that we've allotted like a little over a year, but I know Confluence is very interested in really trying to get the majority of the work done as soon as possible, meaning like probably the end of this year, to really have sort of the main work completed so that they can then process it through. That's barring any unforeseen challenges, but so that's the general thought. It's probably about a year's process.
Thanks.
All right, great. Hearing no further discussion, that takes us to the end of old news and on to the miscellany category. The first item on here is item A, and that is updates on the recommendations regarding boards and commissions committee, which is the actual name of the committee. The committee, or the recommendations regarding boards and commissions committee has still been meeting. We have a meeting near the end of this month. And we've been going through looking at all the boards and committees the city has. Technically not all of them, all the 22 which can potentially be changed. There's a variety which cannot be changed because they're legally required or they're joint boards convened by the city and the county, sort of like the health board at the health department where I work, stuff like that. But so we're looking at those 22 and trying to come up with ways that we can maybe streamline things or improve things. So far, we've mostly recommended more work for the city, which wasn't actually necessarily the original idea of trying to make things simpler. But a lot of what we've talked about has been trying to standardize practices around boards and committees, make sure that there's more like standard operating procedures so that when people are coming on to boards or committees, they're kind of aware of what the expectation is. More training, more onboarding, a lot more recruitment is something that we've been talking a lot about. But at the next meeting will be the first time when we really sit down and look at that list of 22 that we've discussed and sort of categorized and start to come up with some harebrained schemes of how these things might be sort of moved around a little bit. For us, Cultural Arts Commission, we are in the unmistakable identity section, which is actually a pretty small area. It's us, and then the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and then the TGT Advisory Board. So those are the only three bodies which fall primarily under unmistakable identity. And so as far as overlap with other boards, I mean, that's really where we're kind of looking as far as how we might come up with new strategies for divvying up that work. The TGT Advisory Board, and obviously we've talked about TGT funding quite a bit, is different than the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and the Cultural Arts Commission, who really meet all the time throughout the year, and that it kind of meets annually to decide some things, which makes it a little bit different. So if you want to, you can tune into our next meeting where we'll be discussing some ideas on how we might move stuff around. If you have any questions or concerns or anything, you can always ask me. But so far, it's been a lot of us trying to really get to a point where we understand the totality of the boards and committees that we're looking at, because each of us only serves on one or two of those bodies, and some of them are a little bit obscure for most people. So that's what's going on. I don't know if anybody has any questions about it. Maybe that all sounded really uninteresting. It's been actually been a lot of fun though. So, but I haven't heard anybody recommend that the Cultural Arts Commission go away or be subsumed by anything else. I think we have a pretty clear charge in what we're supposed to do, and nobody else is anywhere near doing that. So that is my update on that. It doesn't seem like anybody has too many questions. It is getting a little bit late. The next item in miscellany is B, sharing of community events. If you've attended something, or you're going to attend something, or there's a project happening that people should know about, this is the time. I've talked a lot, so if anybody else wants to say a few words.
I'm going to see a really great band on Sunday, the Lemon Twigs. I saw them in Arkansas, and they're coming to the Bottleneck.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, if for live music, it's going to be a good night.
The Lemon
The
Twigs?
Lemon Twigs, they're fantastic.
That's a really cute name.
It is cute. It's the best.
I'll invite all of you to my retirement party.
Oh, that's very nice of you, Mary.
Saturday, the 25th at the theater.
What time?
Bar opens at 7. There'll be a program at 7:30, and then food and reception afterwards.
You said at 7?
Yes.
You guys just announced your new season.
Yep.
Very exciting.
We did. 14 years in the making. 2 of those shows I have literally been applying for 14 years.
Is Fiddler one of them?
Yep, Fiddler and Christmas Story.
Yeah.
Now you
Bring
can-
back the lamp.
Yep. We're doing the musical version this time. The last
So
time we did
exciting.
just
So
the straight version.
And next Tuesday, there will be a recognition by the city commission for somebody at this table. Unfortunately, I will be out of town, but if anybody can come, I think it's going to be very sweet.
What day?
Next Tuesday at the city commission meeting, there is a recognition for Mary Doveton.
And I understand the author of that is sitting at this table.
Not fully. There's some audio guy that you know that also helped, who has a communications background, who I really appreciate.
Who could that be?
He's been terrific. No, it was an honor, and something I was really like, as soon as I heard, it's like, we need to make this happen. So.
That's
And
awesome.
you can join virtually too, with just a nice celebration publicly for Mary. Yeah, you're welcome.
The arts center auction
Yeah.
is before our next meeting, so that's what, April 8th?
April 8th, this is huge.
Oh, it's early.
I just got my tickets.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a little early, but yeah, it's packed with art, incredible opportunities, not just high price tags, but also prints that are
Yay.
available, and just something for everybody. And it's just a lovely event to attend if you've never been to the art auction.
It's fun.
It's a blast.
It's fun.
So much
fun.
fun. It's absolutely a blast. Did they get an auctioneer the same as like last year?
It's a different auctioneer, but don't quote me on it, because I have not been.
That's a hoot.
planning.
Just, yeah, listening to the auctioneers.
Yeah, it's an art.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be out of town this time around, so
Oh.
I'm gonna miss it, but yeah, sad about that.
You can give me your checkbook.
Yeah. Yeah, Mary
I'll buy you something.
Can I apply for a grant?
All right, great. That is exciting. I will try and be there to applaud Mary's recognition at the city commission. And
Kind of embarrassing.
and unless anybody has anything else to share, we can potentially get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Yep. Second.
All right, I hear a movement in a second. All in favor, go home and have a good evening.
Thanks, Marciana and Rebecca.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on Zoom. Thanks to city staff as always.
Thank you. Bye.
Abby, Porter, Kurt, everybody. It's always nice seeing you.